play, because he played all sports.
Yeah.
When I became older, I played with Label Hirschfield. When I grew too old to play, I watched Label Hirschfield again, because he was endless,
Yeah.
and he was an institution.
Now, you were the quarterback on the University of Manitoba.
I was.
Was it on the Bisons?
It wasn't the Bisons, it was the law school.
The law school team.
It was an interfaculty league,
Uh-huh.
and we won 2 championships.
Uh-huh.
And I was the quarterback, and I was named All-Star twice. All-Star quarterback.
Pretty good. You could be shorter then and be a quarterback.
But they referred to me as the 5'6", 155-pound quarterback.
So, okay, what did you played basketball at the Y?
I played basketball, I played volleyball, I played softball.
But I hear Al was saying how small the gym was. He said it was...
On this miniature gym,
Yeah.
there were fantastic basketball players. It was Spike Hull, the physical director, who decided that he would make a gym out of something which was impossible. I mean, the gym wasn't straight. When you had the ball, you had to go to the other side, and your end was not adjacent to their end. Your end was here, and their end was here. You had to go this way.
Yeah.
In any event, but I played basketball with Fritzie Hansen. I played.
Oh, really?
That's right. I played volleyball
At the Y?
at the YMHA. Fritzie Hansen came and played at the YMHA.
He was the galloping ghost.
The golden, twinkle toes, they call it.
Twinkle Toe? I thought he was the galloping ghost. Yeah.
And maybe he was, but I played volleyball with Lou Mogul.
Okay, that name isn't as familiar as Fritzie
Lou
Hansen.
Mogul was a very familiar name in Winnipeg.
Uh-huh.
He was the coach of he played football for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He was a good footballer. And he coached the St. John's Tech.
Now, in those days, the YMHA basketball team was a powerhouse, wasn't it?
No, we weren't that good.
Or was it in baseball? Or softball?
All right, it was before my time.
Uh-huh.
They were a good soccer team.
No, soccer team.
And Label Hirschfield
Was the star.
was a star.
Yeah.
I think Sam Shapps played soccer too.
Uh-huh.
But as a basketball team, we ranked among the bottom teams, not the top teams.
Okay, but then you were president of the Y.
House.
You,
See, everybody, in those days it was different. Everybody virtually belonged to a club.
yeah.
And you'd come on Saturday and the clubs would have their meetings between 5 o'clock and 7. There was a big argument as to whether the Y should open before sundown.
Yeah.
It was a big issue in the community, but it just didn't.
So it didn't open till 5?
It probably opened, still open before sundown. It was,
Yeah.
it was contrary to what the rabbis wanted, but it was necessary for the program. And because every Saturday night was a teen canteen.
Yeah.
Every Saturday night.
But you said you joined when you were 8 years old.
Right.
Were there clubs for 8-year-olds? Because when I was
it was mostly arts and crafts and activities.
Uh-huh.
The clubs started when we were probably bar mitzvah age.
Yeah.
13.
Do you remember, did you go in the early afternoon?
It was not early afternoon because there was a big fight about whether we should be open at all
Okay.
on Shabbos.
So you went the same time as the older kids?
Yeah, well, I don't even remember older kids. We were all there as youngsters, and the clubs, which probably started in the mid-40s, the clubs met. We didn't meet until Sunday, but a lot of the clubs met at 5 o'clock. And then there was a teen canteen every Saturday night. And each club would sponsor a teen canteen. Like tonight it would be the Gabalots, next week it's the Panthers, the next week it's the YCC.
And for what? For food? They would sell food?
Well, there was no selling of food. It was a dance and a little skit.
Oh, it was a dance and a skit.
Yeah, a little show and maybe a singer or something. And a dance. It was a dance every Saturday night. It was called the teen canteen.
Oh, it was a teen
And that's
canteen.
where we met girls and girls met boys and romances took place.
Uh-huh. I remember, I've told the story that Babs asked for, do you remember her?
I don't remember Babs that well, but I knew her.
Because she was in the Chicklets.
The Chicklets I knew very well.
And they had a reunion of the
The
Chicklets.
Chicklets were a South End club.
Ah. So you were obviously a North End club.
We were a North
the
End
Comets
club.
were a North End club.
The Esquires were a South End club of boys.
Yeah. There were loads of clubs on that.
There could have been 20 clubs.
I know. It was.
And everybody virtually belonged to a club. And our club made the biggest name for itself. Well, we called ourselves the YCCs, the YMHA Comet Club.
Ah.
But they used to have a Club of the Year. And we virtually won the Club of the Year almost every year.
So when you were president of the Y, were you still
The House Council.
Oh, president of the House Council.
What happened is Lou Rousseff was the one who arranged this. Every club sent a representative to a council. And the council conducted, like the teen canteen, we allocated the dates.
Mm-hmm.
And also we had a drama festival and an oratorical contest. The House Council generated activities that involved everybody, not just the club.
So this would be in the 40s. In the 1940s.
Oh, the 1940s? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 1940s.
Yeah. Because
and I was the president of the House Council.
what I was amazed to read in this program that Al Chisholm gave me, in 1947 the YMHA had 1,800 members. For a small building like that, I know not everyone goes at once, but that's a pretty huge membership. So it's hard to imagine.
Don't forget the membership was not just youngsters. I mean, there was a health club. Even on Albert Street, there was a health club.
Where was the health club?
It was on the second floor.
On the second
floor. There was a sauna, and there was a health club. But the health club became prestigious on Hargrave because there was a separate room for the health club. If you weren't in the health club, you didn't go to that section of the activities. It was more expensive and it was exclusive.
Yeah. Okay, so let's.
But I think at that time,
Yeah.
We had more like 3,000 members.
What period are we talking about?
I would say the late 40s, early 50s.
Well, it could be. Now, how involved were you in the opening of the new YMHA? You would have been a young man.
I was on the board of directors.
And an
I
opening.
was president of the House Council. And as president of the House Council, I sat on the board of directors. I was on the board when we called for the construction of 370 Hargrave.
Which opened in 1952.
That's right.
Okay.
But it started building in about 1950.
Who were the prime drivers? Who?
I would say David Slater, Alec Mitchell, Harold Schwartz. Sam Friedman could have been involved. He was president of the Y at one time. But it was the people that I remember are Harold Schwartz, Alec Mitchell, and David Slater. These were the drivers.
Uh-huh. But then you became heavily involved in the YMHA on Hargrave.
On Hargrave, I was more an employee than I was. I did participate in activities. I played basketball. The Comets as a club didn't go beyond 1955, 54. And at that time, I worked for the Y. I was the adult program director.
Oh.
I was the young adult program
But were you were in
and
university
I was hired
though?
by Sam Sheps to run the Belabored
But you
camp.
would have been, yeah, no, you were also running BB camp.
I was the I was the director of BB camp when we opened.
Which was all around the same time, wasn't it? Early 50s.
54.
54.
We went first year in Town Island. It was in 54.
Well, BB camp used to be near Sandy
Sandy
Hook.
Hook.
Yeah. Were you ever involved
I
there?
was never.
Uh-uh.
I never went to the Sandy Hook camp except to see people or to take part in a panel or something. I was never involved with the Belabored camp on Sandy Hook. I was the director of the Belabored camp when we opened. I was the first director of the Belabored camp at Town Island.
Oh, the first director.
I was the first director in 1954, and I was the director in 55, and they wanted me to be the director in 56. By then, I had 2 children. I was practicing law, and I just couldn't put aside the law practice for 2 months or 3 months to.
Was Belabored camp run by the YMHA?
Well, you say run by the YMHA. The B'nai B'rith was a separate organization.
I know.
They the B'nai B'rith didn't have youth activities, children's activities.
Oh, it didn't.
So they hired the YMHA to run the B'nai B'rith camp, to staff the B'nai B'rith camp.
Oh.
And I was hired by Sam Sheps, and at that time, I was an employee of the Y. I was the young adult program director. And as a matter of fact, in those years, it could have been 54, it could have been 53, I sponsored a folk festival with different nationality folk music at the YMHA on Hargrave. And I had Ukrainian dancers, Scottish dancers, English dancers. It was like
it was the forerunner of Folklorama.
Yeah. And then Folklorama developed shortly after that.
In '69.
But I did it first.
Oh, that's interesting. So you were the program director.
I remember the program very well because it was a big success. But I had invited the United Ukrainian Canadians and the Canadian Ukrainian. I invited the left-wing organization and the right-wing organization. And when they came, the right-wing organization was very upset that the other one was there. They weren't going to perform, but they ultimately did. And that organization that I invited is still there now at the Labor Temple. As a matter of fact, it's run by a classmate of mine named Myron Shatowski. But he's still running it, or at least he was.
That's the left-wing Ukraine.
That's the communist organization.
Okay. So, all right. So then you developed the law practice.
But I was very much. I mean, now I'm telling you as an employee.
Yeah.
I was super active in all YMHA activities, the athletic activities, the social activities, theatrical activities, whatever would be mini political, like the House Council.
Yeah.
I was there all the time.
What about as you stayed on active as a member?
I'm sorry?
You stayed on active as a member even after you had already finished being an employee. You were still an active member.
Yes, I continued to be a member, and I participated mostly in noon hour volleyball. There's no more clubs involved.
Yeah.
A noon hour volleyball and Sunday morning basketball. And I joined the health club. And I participated in those activities and sat on the board of directors. And I did this until I became a minister of the Crown. That was the early 70s.
69.
Well, I became a minister in 69, but I was still on the board in 1970. I think I left the board in 71. And that's about the time that I left the Y. When did the Rady Center go up?
97.
In 97?
Yeah.
Well, I stayed on doing, as I say, I played volleyball and I played basketball on Sunday mornings. And then I left. I didn't go to the Rady Center.
Yeah, you've told me. So what are some of your fondest memories? You were involved in writing. I can see you helped to write plays and musicals.
I was very much involved in Rousseau's plays. Very much involved. I was always given a leading role in the Rousseau's plays. And I knew, I don't, do you know any Yiddish?
A little, just like, yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example. There's a song called Peanuts. It's a Mexican song. And he wrote Jewish lyrics to it, which were very good. Nisalag, Azir wird Preisen Apples, Emmes geht Voice dort und geht Krieg. Steht dort sehr tief Betrag. Take der tief Banat. Und geht Voice und geht Krieg. Dann kann die Kinder lacht zu leben, Caves say, Shane and Nisalag. I mean, it's a very clever lyric. And he did it for numerous songs. And I was in plays, continuous songs that Lou had directed and played the piano for. But he was also very skilled at arts and crafts. And he wrote plays, and he was generally heavily involved in the program. Then, I can't remember the year, but I would guess that it was about 1948 that his father-in-law died and left money. And he and his wife went to Hollywood. And he became involved. I mean, that was his main ambition, was to do theater. And he did become involved in Hollywood.
Al Chisholm was telling me that.
If you look up the movies with Annette Funicello,
that's what Al was telling me. Yeah.
Stuff like that. He was involved in those movies.
So he was the program director, and Sam Sheps was the executive director.
Label Hirschfield was the physical director. And I remember when Label Hirschfield was honored, this would be in the 60s, and the 70s, because I was a minister at the time. And they honored Label Hirschfield as the athlete of 50 years.
Yeah, the half century, yeah.
Whatever it was.
Joe Wilder.
And I sent a letter to Joe Wilder's a couple of years younger than me.
Because he's got a good voice.
Well, I never.
You never heard him sing?
Never on the stage with Joe Wild.
Oh. He sings in Yiddish beautifully. He'll do it upon request.
I was never on the stage with Joe Wild.
Oh, okay.
I was on the stage with, what's her name, Dorothy Oberman.
Would that be Sheldon Oberman's mother? I don't know. There are a lot of Obermans. Yeah.
She was a real person, a real character.
Okay, so now I know that it was a great social hub. The Y. So, but
What do you mean a great social?
well, it's Saturday night.
It was a teen canteen.
Yeah.
It was called the teen canteen. And it was put on, sponsored every night by one of the clubs. And generally they would put on some type of program and a dance. And the dance was always to recorded music.
But what before the Y opened on Albert Street, I understood it was almost entirely men who belonged to the.
That's right.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, on Albert Street, it was called the Young Men's Hebrew Association.
Yeah.
On Albert Street, we did have girls' clubs.
Yeah, that was the first time.
Yeah, but we did have girls' clubs. I mean, I remember, and when I was on the stage, there were always girls too. It was men.
Do you remember the Y before Albert Street? It was between Selkirk and
Maine.
Yeah. Do you remember it?
No,
Because I've tried to find which building it might have been. I guess it's not around.
it was near the newspaper.
The Jewish Post was on Selkirk
Not
and
the
Maine.
Jewish Post.
Yeah.
The Israelite.
Oh, the Israelite paper. The Jewish Post was also around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to think. Interestingly, Label Hirschfeld wrote a series that they've got in the Jewish Heritage Center. They showed me, and they're from the Jewish Post. He wrote them in the 1980s, A History of the YMHA, and he listed all the buildings that housed the YMHA. There was the Fairbairn building. There was one on Portage Avenue.
The only ones that I knew, and I never went to the Selkirk Avenue building.
Yeah.
But I went to the, excuse me. I got a cough and I can't get rid of it. I went to the Albert Street building from 1938 to 1950, till we moved. Was it 52 that we opened?
It was 52 that it opened. I don't know if it's
I went
stayed.
from
Yeah.
there, and most of my youthful activities were on Albert Street, and I played basketball on Albert Street. I played with Fritzie Hansen on Albert Street, and Lou Mogul.
I've got a picture of the auditorium, and there's a picture of the front entrance, but there's no picture of the gym. And that's what I really, because the way you described and the way Al Chisholm described, Al Chisholm said it would be about as big as this room.
All right, the gym would probably be from one end to the other between 30 and 40 feet. But it wasn't straight.
No, you said the walls
There was
were
a half this way and a half that way. One basket. The baskets did not face each other. They were like this.
Yeah.
The baskets were like this.
Yeah, he said one was in one corner and another was in another corner.
That's right.
He said, well,
But there were the Stella Mission boys had a team in our league,
yeah.
and they became champions of Canada, basketball champions of Canada, but they played in our league.
Well, but not on Albert Street, though, did they?
This was on Albert Street.
Oh, really?
And yes, they played in our league on Albert Street. I mean,
I'm gonna try and go down to the building. I don't know what's in there now, and see if they've.
on Albert Street?
Yeah.
I've been in it recently. Say within the building hasn't changed very much.
Do you think you can still see what the gym looked like?
I think the third floor is still there.
That would be the second floor.
The gym was the second floor, but the
Yeah,
auditorium was the third floor.
I looked at.
I don't know that the gym hasn't been subdivided.
Yeah, it was a movie.
You know, there was a wonderful steam bath in the Albert Street.
Uh-huh.
They never ever were able to make the steam bath on
Hargrave.
Hargrave as good as the one on Albert Street. Was a much better steam bath than the one on Hargrave.
Ah. Okay.
It
Anyway.
was a wonderful steam bath.
All right.